Chris Evans seems to have arrived. Here he comes.
Oh, he's got the jacket on and everything. Come on in. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. You okay? Very good. This is so weird. Come on in. Come and be our guest.
Well done. Good to see you.
Hi, Greg. Hi, Giles. How are you?
Oh,
Right.
Son, you want
Just
me
sit on
there?
the end there.
Okay.
look.
how weird to be sat on that side of the sofa,
Yeah,
Chris.
okay.
Yeah, just sit in.
Christopher.
Yes, sir.
So many questions.
Okay.
Right, first of all, you categorically said, I will not be running for office in
Yes.
terms of Top Gear.
I did.
What happened? Why the U-turn?
Well, what happened was, when I said that, the whole sort of debacle, the Top Gear issue had happened, and I honestly thought that James and Richard were going to carry on.
Right.
And I thought they should carry on, and they could carry on, and I wanted them to carry on as a viewer.
Yeah.
And I said this to various people in that building there.
Right on the top floor?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
top
up
floor,
there.
or the top 2 floors. And they said, OK, we're hearing you. OK, don't worry, we've got the situation under control. And then the next day or a few days, I was the #1 choice with the bookies to take over Top Gear. It's like, hang on a minute, you
Well,
can't...
you're perfect.
No, but that wasn't the situation then. So I thought, what's all this talk about taking over what? There's still a show there. There's nothing wrong with the show. The show was in really good fettle, and had been for ages. You know, in fact, it was. Somebody's compared it to Man United when Alex
Hang
Ferguson.
on. I have that smooth transition from walking around, Chris, to on the sofa.
Sorry,
on
Top Gear is a
telly.
one show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, somebody said, well, isn't it like when Man United left? Alex Ferguson left Man United. You know, because once he was gone, it all went a bit pear-shaped. That's not really, because his era was an end of an era for him and the team. So the seeds that he'd sown were also coming to an end. So everything was coming to an end. But Top Gear wasn't like that. Top Gear was flying. I mean, I thought that the last series was as good as any, better than the last couple. It was brilliant. And I've said today loads of times, you know, a bad Top Gear is better than most of the TV shows in the world. And by the way, I can't remember a bad Top Gear. And so that was the situation. So I had to get out of that situation. I had to say, look, do not involve me in this. This is silly, you know, because the newspapers were playing with it, Twitter was playing with it. And, you know, in the middle of all this was a really sad, upset, fragile production team. 3 of my mates, 4 of my mates, including Andy Willman, you know, I didn't want to be part of that, you know. So I said, no, this is never going to happen. Don't be silly. And I honestly thought it wouldn't have. I didn't even. Somebody said, "Oh, this must be a dream come true." I never even dreamt I would ever present Top Gear. And then last Wednesday, Richard and James, who were offered a deal by the BBC, finally said they're not going to come. And so the next day, I was writing TFI Friday in my house around the corner where you've been.
Yeah.
And I got a text at 4:07 from Mark Lindsay, who is the head of entertainment here, and he said, "Are you prepared to have a Top Gear conversation?" I said, "Yeah." And I called him 10 minutes later, and he said, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Do you want to do it?" I said, well, "Do you want to do what?" He said, "Well, do the whole thing. Do you want to produce it? Do you want to sort of take it over?" I said, "Really? Do you really want me to do that?" And then he explained to me what happened with Richard and James, and I said, "What? And that's never going to happen then?" He said, "No, it's never going to happen." I said, "OK, well, I need to think about that." So 1 minute later, I called him back and said yes.
That's thumping, because I mean, it's a
why
dream
it
come
changed.
true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, 'cause you know, I would love to see James and Richard back doing it. And who knew, or who knows, you know, if they had come back for a year, maybe Jeremy would have come back after a year. You know, I love Top Gear just the way it was. You know, believe me, I'm #1 in the world who doesn't want it to change.
Yeah. Well, we know about you, Chris, and that you're doing it. Can you let us know anything about who you might be doing it with, or who you would like to do it with?
OK, well, I'm not going to name any names, because that'll start the bookies thing going up again.
Right.
But you're here, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're both here, thank you. And, I mean, somebody said today, somebody sort of jumped into the car with the microphone and said, "So, have you got a short list?" I said, no, I haven't got a short list. I've got a very long list.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do tomorrow on the radio, and we can mention it now, is the way that James and Richard were found was by auditioning.
Was it?
Yeah. And so we're going to hold auditions, but not just for famous people, ex-famous people up and coming famous people, in between famous people, but for people
Everybody.
who are watching
So
the show.
this is a massive exclusive. So anybody at home right now can audition to be your co-host on Top Gear. Is that what you're saying?
Male, female, old, young, it doesn't matter. But the one thing that does matter is you've got to, A, have an appetite for cars, but a real appetite for cars, because you'll get found out so quickly if you don't.
Yeah.
And you've got to know something about cars. You know,
Yeah.
you can be a mechanic, you can be a amateur racing driver, you can be a guy who who's a fireman but has been building his own Land Rover in his shed for 5 years, 10 years.
Amazing.
But you've got to know about cars. If you don't know about cars, to some extent, you know, whatever your angle on cars may be, because we'll all have different angles, then really don't waste your time. You know, you can waste our time, but don't waste your own time.
So are you going to give the details on the radio tomorrow of exactly how people can get in touch?
What I'll
yeah?
do tomorrow, because we hopefully will get a lot of people applying for this.
I think there'll be one or two.
And by the way, from all over the world, so you can apply from anywhere. I mean, we've already had audition takes from Kazakhstan.
No way.
From people who, you know, are qualified to do it. They, you know, they know about cars. They write car columns. By the way, car journalists who currently work, you know, for newspapers or for magazines. If you're up for it, you know, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We'll be, you know, if you two want to put, you know, a little
I am
audition
not
on that,
running for
this is not
office.
how you do it.
Well,
You're not
Categorically not running for office.
I can be a tractor correspondent.
Well, see,
Tractors,
we
you
could
know.
do something on tractors.
Yeah, we could.
You know, and will we have one host or two hosts or
Yeah.
three hosts? Will we
Well,
have
yeah.
hosts that come and go, you know, depending on what's on the programme that night? I started working on this programme properly on Saturday morning after we come back from TF5 Friday. I worked on it all weekend. I've already talked to some people today who could host it with me.
That's very organised for you, Christoph.
Well, yeah, because I'm not really like that.
Not really.
You know, Alex, I'm not really like that.
Well,
at all.
listen, thank you so much for dropping by tonight.
But what we'll do
Bringing a
is
nice
we'll announce it again tomorrow on the radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll announce the rules.
'Cause you need to-
There are some rules, and then we'll
with
give
video
out the
clips
address
and
for the website. Once we've got the website, a website that can cope with it on Friday morning.
Okay. Let's go to the pub next to celebrate, yeah?
Yeah, we've got to go to the pub because we've got things to discuss.
We have.
Yes.
All right.
No more tears. Were they
more
tears of
tears.
joy this afternoon, or?
They might have been.
Chris, thank you.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
You know the one show, we turn the page now. We're moving on because Dom has been on the trail of a group of doorstep conmen based in Cambridge looking to make some easy money.
But they got more than they bargained for, didn't they, when they knocked on an 8-year-old's door, as Dom's been finding out.